Why do I want to be someone else? There is something both touching and tragic about the human tendency to look at our own life and find it somehow insufficient, while gazing at others' lives with a mixture of envy and longing. The grass appears greener everywhere except where we stand. The life being lived by someone else seems more interesting, more fulfilling, more worthy than our own. But observe this phenomenon more closely. A successful entrepreneur scrolls through social media and feels inadequate seeing an artist's creative freedom. Meanwhile, that same artist looks at the entrepreneur's financial security with deep longing. Each person inhabits their own experience completely, yet both imagine that somewhere else lies a more satisfying way of being. This reveals something profound about the nature of comparison and the construction of dissatisfaction. Watch what happens in the mind when it encounters someone who appears to have what we lack. If we struggle with confidence, we notice confident people and feel diminished by contrast. If we feel lonely, we observe those who seem socially connected and experience our solitude as deficiency. If we doubt our abilities, we see competent people and interpret their skills as evidence of our inadequacy. But what exactly are we comparing? We are comparing our internal experience, with all its doubts, fears, struggles, and uncertainties, to our imagination of someone else's external appearance. We know intimately our own difficulties, while knowing only the curated highlights of others' lives. This comparison is fundamentally flawed from the beginning. It's like comparing the rough draft of our own story to the published version of someone else's. Yet the desire to be someone else runs deeper than simple comparison. It seems to emerge from a more fundamental dissatisfaction with existence itself. A feeling that whatever life we have been given is somehow the wrong life, that we ended up in the wrong circumstances, with the wrong personality facing the wrong challenges. This dissatisfaction often begins early. A child looks at their siblings and wishes for their talents, their position in the family, their apparent ease with certain things. An adolescent observes classmates and imagines that everyone else has received some manual for social interaction that they somehow miss. The adult version becomes more sophisticated but follows the same pattern. If only I had their career, their relationship, their confidence, their opportunities, their natural gifts, their freedom, their peace of mind, then I would be happy. But investigation reveals something interesting. People who seem to have everything we want often report the same fundamental dissatisfaction. The confident person struggles with self-doubt in private. The successful person feels empty despite achievements. The seemingly free person experiences their own forms of constraint. This suggests that the problem may not be with our particular circumstances, but with the mechanism of dissatisfaction itself. What if the desire to be someone else is actually an avoidance of being present to who we already are? What if it's a way of escaping the full experience of our own life by imagining that fulfillment exists somewhere else, in some other form, as some other person? There is something painful about fully inhabiting our own existence. It means accepting our limitations alongside our gifts. It means facing our challenges rather than fantasizing about easier lives. It means being present to our actual emotions instead of imagining how much better we would feel as someone else. The person who wants to be someone else is often someone who has never fully explored what it means to be themselves. They have lived on the surface of their own experience, constantly looking elsewhere for validation, meaning, and satisfaction. But what happens when someone stops running from their own life and begins to investigate it directly? What happens when they become curious about their own experience rather than dismissive of it? Often, they discover that what they thought was boring or inadequate about themselves contains unexpected depth. The personality traits they wanted to escape reveal themselves as pathways to understanding. The circumstances they wanted to change become teachers. The limitations they resented become doorways to compassion. This is not about settling for less or giving up on growth and change. This is about recognizing that genuine development can only happen from where we actually are, not from where we wish we were. The person who fully accepts their starting point often finds they can move more freely than someone who is constantly fighting with their circumstances. Acceptance creates space for natural evolution. Resistance creates stagnation. There is also something to be discovered about the nature of identity itself. The more deeply we investigate who we are, the more the solid sense of being a particular person begins to dissolve into something more fluid and mysterious. The characteristics we thought defined us, our personality, our history, our preferences, our limitations, reveal themselves to be temporary conditions rather than permanent features. What seemed like a fixed self that needed to be exchanged for a different fixed self begins to appear more like weather patterns in an open sky. In this recognition, the desire to be someone else may transform into curiosity about what we actually are beneath all the identifications and stories. Perhaps what we really long for when we want to be someone else is not their particular life, but the freedom we imagine they have. Freedom from self-consciousness, from limitation, from the burden of being a separate self with all its problems and inadequacies. But what if this freedom is not the possession of some fortunate other person, but our essential nature obscured by the belief that we are insufficient as we are? The investigation of why do I want to be someone else may ultimately reveal that there is no one else to be and no separate self that could become them. There is only this awareness, appearing as countless expressions, each unique and complete in its own way. Can you explore your own experience with the same fascination you bring to others? Can you discover the depths that exist in your own life rather than assuming they exist only elsewhere? Can you find in yourself what you imagine others possess? What is this that needs no other form to be complete? This awareness that appears as every person yet belongs to none. This being that is already what it seeks to become.